Not one decision that I made in 6 years on the city commission was based on any of the 10 commandments.
Your decisions completely disregarded the 10 commandments.
As far as, yeah, I never even thought about it.
When you think of Manhattan, the words religious schism probably don't come to mind. But that's just what senior correspondent James Greenberg found when he visited Manhattan, Kansas.
In the beginning, God gave Moses the 10 Commandments. 3,000 years later, Cecil B. DeMille forwarded them to the Fraternal Order of Eagles in Manhattan, Kansas. The monolith was a promotion for his film, The 10 Commandments. The Eagles promptly foisted it off on City Hall.
It's sat there for years, since 1958. Nobody paid any attention to it.
That changed in 1998, when the city made the mistake of placing the 10 Commandments where people could actually see them.
Once that happened, it goosed those who didn't like it into action.
Among those goosed, Lyman Baker, citizen, teacher, atheist.
The objection is not to the 10 Commandments here. The objection is to the placement of the 10 Commandments at the seat of government.
With the help of the ACLU, Baker and 6 others sued the city for violating the separation of church and state. Manhattan, Kansas became a battleground.
I'm told by many people who've been here a lot longer than I have, this is the worst split ever seen in the city.
Do you think that the people who objected are reasonable people?
No, I don't really think they are.
Grow up. Stop acting like a 2-year-old.
I think they're kind of ridiculous.
And throwing a temper tantrum because you didn't get your own way.
But none matched the scornful fury of the atheist Lyman Baker.
I get along with my neighbors. They're consummately considerate.
Mayor Steve Hall disputes the notion that the commandments could offend anyone.
Well, for example, thou shalt not worship any other god before me.
Right.
What about to someone who worships another god?
I think I would, that individual would say, I still worship the other God. I mean, it may say, thou shalt not, but how is it actually forcing me physically, mentally, and emotionally to not continue to believe what I believe?
So some of its power rests in the fact that it essentially has no power and you're free to ignore it.
That's correct. That's my feeling.
And that is power.
Right, it is.
Dale Herspring, on the other hand, acknowledges that the commandments could offend, and he's fine with that.
I object to your tie. Does that mean I have a right to have you change your tie? Absolutely not. Now, the problem with saying if we don't want to offend anybody is pretty soon you end up offending nobody and end up offending everybody.
There was one thing everyone agreed on, the polling numbers.
It's running, I would say, at about 70% that it should stay.
The various polls have normally said something like 80%.
It was obvious that 92% of the community wished us to leave them where they were.
But the atheist Lyman Baker wanted the commandments removed. Manhattan was being torn apart.
I think what it really is an attack on traditional American values.
Are you trying to turn Manhattan, Kansas into Sodom?
I should hope not. I want to live here.
Gomorrah? How about Gomorrah?
Please no,
How relevant are commandments like, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's manservant?
I don't know if there's anything or anyone that covenants thy manservant.
Well, back to Manhattan, Kansas, and our feature story. For decades, a 10 Commandments monolith was displayed outside City Hall until atheist Lyman Baker called this a violation of the separation of church and state. Now, senior correspondent James Greenberg explores alternatives to removing the 10 Commandments.
There are 4 entrances to City Hall.
That is correct.
So then why couldn't you make this the 10 Commandments entrance, and then have a Torah entrance, and then have a Quran entrance, and have a Kama Sutra entrance?
Well, anything is conceivable. I mean, there's all kinds of options and alternatives.
So you could opt to always use the Kama Sutra entrance. Or you could go in the Kama Sutra, come out the 10 Commandments.
If that was what it was, absolutely.
Many consider the lawsuit an assault upon the code of ethics that governed their very lives.
Are you familiar with the 8th commandment?
Not off the top of my head.
Are you familiar with the 2nd commandment?
I hate to say this, I am not.
Are you familiar with the 9th commandment?
Not right off the top of my head, no.
The 8th commandment. Are you familiar with it?
Not bearing false witness against your neighbor.
Mayor Hall was willing to compromise, though he drew the line at copy changes.
What if they made it the 10 suggestions?
Yeah. I think that, in my feeling, that this is now a time to stand up for a principle, and I think we need to deal with the issue as it is.
Not as the 10 suggestions.
No, I think we should deal with the issue.
Or the 10 guidelines.
Exactly, yeah. No, I think we should deal exactly with the issue at hand right now.
What about a bullet point system?
Yeah. No.
Or the 10 talking points?
Yeah. No. Let's just leave it at the 10 Commandments.
Leave it at the 10 Commandments.
The city commissioners mulishly refused to rephrase the 10 Commandments. So, fearing a costly court battle, they voted to remove the monolith.
So do you feel that moving the 10 Commandments was a blow for evil?
It certainly wasn't a blow for good.
To me, what happened is a case of either political stupidity or ideological rigidity.
His opinion may have some validity. Regardless, the monolith was carted away, leaving Lyman Baker to ponder the consequences.
Sometimes, in the wee, cold still of the night, do you fear God's wrath?
No. No, I don't.
At last, it was time for a journey of awakening into the inner sanctum of the Reliable Storage Company.
These are the 10 Commandments?
Yes, sir. That's where they're stored.
I'm going to remove the shroud now. Hypothetical. God suddenly appears to Lyman Baker and says, "Put back the 10 Commandments, or I'll visit a plague of frogs upon Manhattan, Kansas." What does Lyman Baker do?
Well, my own case, I would start wondering whether I was hallucinating.
What if God suddenly appeared and said, "P.S. You're not crazy"?
If I were convinced that I had a personal revelation from God to do something, well, yes, well, then I would do it.
The 10 Commandments wait for Lyman Baker.